Hello everybody. Welcome to the stream. Welcome. I have gone ahead and imported this map, this really nice looking map. It's kind of a drift map if I'm honest, but it looks really cool. I think we can build around this map really easily. And I think when I downloaded this map, I think I needed to credit the creator of this map, which I am going to do. But yeah, I hope you like it. Anyway, let's go ahead. Hello everybody. And continue building our game. I went ahead and got in this sketching tool. So later, when we have some complex code, I can, I can use this to clarify. Okay, so playing this game, it feels like there's not much actually missing. We just need some, friction controlling, and that's it for now. I think we can focus on other parts of what makes a car game actually drivable, and this is one of them. We have to do some preventing on not rolling. Anyway, what would be the first order of business for today? I'm feeling a little fresh, and I think we can get a lot done today. I develop a car game. What car game are you developing? It's always good to hear that you guys are all also developing car games. and it makes me want to try and help as much as I can. Anyway, excuse me. So where we left off is that we made the wheels actually turn. So I fixed the wheels from the last video. I made a push to the GitHub repository. I will show you the code right now. Here is the code. What I did is I made a steering void block of code, and this is how I managed to fix it. Last time this was a little longer, so we did some more calculation which we didn't need. We ended up removing the lerping function, so it now snaps back in, but we're gonna fix that later. That's not a worry for now. What is important to point out is that our wheels are actually working, and we can reduce the steering radius based on how fast we're going. The formula for that is actually super easy. We just take how fast we're going and we give this fast going a multiplier. And that's it actually. And then we just apply it to the global max steer. And I think we can put this whole entire thing into a lerp. And then once we do that, we can just, you know, control how fast we turn our wheels. I do this to pass the time. Okay. That is wonderful to hear. Where are you from? I am from Albania, currently living in Germany. Thank you for asking. How did you guys learn how to code? Did you study coding or something like that? Because I'm always interested on hearing other people's opinion on how you learned coding. Because good code, you know, good code does not come from the university. So this does not come from university. Good code comes from practice. So if you have good practice, you don't need a university. That's what I learned after like 7 or 8 years of development. This is just a lie. This university thing is just a really big lie that people keep telling you, hey, you need uni. You don't. Anyway, let's get back into our game. So let's build some more function into this. So let's recap on what we have. We have a way of driving our car. We have a way of steering our car. We need to work on the friction. I'll do that off camera. I don't want to bore you off to death. Now what I like to do is to build. What do we want to do? What do we want to build actually? Let's actually do what we should have done in the beginning. We should make this car controller be controlled from other aspects or from other scripts. So let's go back in here and let's define a struct, or not a struct, but we should define a enum. Enums are usually defined down here. Okay, this is what we need for now. Maybe later we can add in a boss like this. But for now, we will just use player type. So we can only be a player and an NPC. And later on, we can just hook the input variables into an NPC if we decide to use an NPC. Hello everybody who is just joining. We are building this car game. Now, right now we are trying to build a system that will allow us for later to connect a non-playable character into our car controller. So we don't have to write separate scripts. Okay, that's perfect. And on top of here, we will define that enum as player, what do we call it? Player type. And we can just name it player type. That's the beauty of naming, what do you call these? Enums? Not enums, but variables. With a capital letter, and then you can just initialize them with a lowercase letter. And that's it for now. That is literally all we had to do to create a enum. Okay, so now let's try and hook up the inputs. So we already have these inputs in here. We already use a on move, on jump, but we don't use, what do we not use? Well, we don't need the tab for the NPCs. I guess the only thing would be to use the handbrake, but I don't think NPCs should be able to use the handbrake. What do you guys think? The NPCs should only have a waypoint system that will allow them to look at the next node. That's all they should do. So we should have, if you're wondering on how to do nodes, here I'll actually show you. So let's delete this. Yes. And what we are trying to do is build some AI, which is not really AI. It's not AI, it's non-playable characters, which is all scripted. But people like to call it AI, so we're gonna call it AI as well. But just to know that it's not really AI. So we have the AI, and what the AI will do is it will look into a list of nodes. So we'll have a node 0, which will look into node 1, which also will look to a node 2. So we have 0, 1, 2, and then the list goes on. So now what we need to program this NPC is to go into the first node and then look if we have a next node. So if we do, we will tell this first node, well, actually not this first node, we will tell this NPC to just transform dot look at. So once we do that, we automatically look into this front node. And once we're close enough to this node, we take this node and we make it our current node, and then we move forward to the next node. So before we apply our look at, we want to apply another sort of variable in here that will allow us to not look straight into the node, but to look a little bit more to the left or to the right. So we introduce some variety. I cannot speak. Anyway, let's not do that for now. Let's set up some more things before we go into there. So the first thing that I would like to do is fix the camera, because it's really bothering me. Like this. This looks pretty good for now. I can just lift it up a little bit later. And we definitely need some controlling when it comes to, you know, wheel physics. But we already have that from our previous little project. Okay. Hello everybody that is just joining in. We are trying... What? Why am I showing this? I wanted to show this. This is our old scripts, which you can find in my YouTube channel. And somewhere down here, I have a car wheel manager. Wheel drive. It's supposed to be somewhere in here. We'll find it later on because we'll definitely need some wheels, some wheel friction manager. Anyway, as I was saying before I interrupted my own self, is we need this player type to actually work. Okay, now you can hear me well. That's perfect. Okay, let's continue working. Let's continue scripting. Let's continue doing stuff. So now that we got the camera fixed, let's build on. I interrupted myself again. I do apologize. Anyway, so the first order of business would be to obviously connect this to this. So we already have these inputs. What we need to do is to have a way of setting these inputs. So I'm already saying what I should do, and that is obviously to just set setters. So if you ever worked with a somewhat large code base, you will sometime down the line use getters and setters. So let's actually turn wheel loop speed. We do not need this or this. We just need the input for now. And I guess we will need the handbrake as well. This is not the handbrake. This is the handbrake. So spacebar switch. So this is what we need. And let's just take this up here. And let's name this input. This is not an input. Okay, perfect. So let's do this into private, and the rest is very self-explanatory. So we will say set move input. This will obviously take in a vector2, so a vector2 input. And this is of course a void, but it's not just what happened. But it's not just a void. It's actually right, a void. But this actually needs a way of communicating with other scripts. And the way to do that is to just say public, like this. And you can see how it highlights itself whenever I use the public keyword. What is happening? So let's do public, wait again, because this computer hates me. And the rest of this is actually self-explanatory. Just take this input and put it into move input. So move input is equal to input. What you will see sometimes into legacy code or code that is older than the earth itself is that they will use move input, and they will use move input in here. Move in. like this. And this with this is confusing. So move input is equal to move input. This is really confusing to me. So what they will do is will say this dot move input, and this will refer to anything that you have in here. But this is just, I don't know why. Maybe if you work in NASA or something like that, but for me, I don't know why I would use this. I would rather name this into input. Or better to just put in a underline in the front, and that's it. And you don't have to use this keyword. So now that you set the move input, hello everybody that just joined in, we are trying to build this game, and I'm trying to explain why do we need the set. And later on we will definitely need a public void get move input. Now what will this do? This will literally return move input like this. But we will not do this for now. Wait, return doesn't work. Can anybody of you guess why the return doesn't work? That is because this is supposed to be a vector too, like this. Because we need something to return, not a void. Anyway, we're not going to use this for now. We're just going to use set move input. Now that we have the set move input, we will need a set spacebar pressed. But I don't think this naming is proper. I think some of you have to correct me on that. This is just not proper naming. Even by my low naming standards, I'm really not really good at naming things. But even by my own standard, this is not good. I'm just gonna leave it though. I'm not gonna fix it. Because as they say, do not fix something that is not broken. So we'll say public void set space bar pressed. This will obviously take in a boolean. And this can take in the same name as this. So I will do that for the sake of consistency, because you need to be consistent. You need to follow a specific pattern. Because as we saw into one of Jason's video, I think, I'm not going to say who Jason is, but I think if you're following YouTube drama so far, you should know who Jason is. So Jason used, I didn't check the code itself, but Jason used a switch with a case like this that had over 100 cases. Now there's nothing wrong with having 100 cases, but if you do 100 cases and then you have the first case do some function, but the function is not a callable function. The function is literally in here. So you don't call the function. And if you do this 100 times, that's just a little stupid for me. Maybe I'm wrong, I don't know. So as I was saying, we have this public, we will set the spacebar pressed, and the spacebar pressed is equal to move input. Not move input, but this move input. This should not be called move input, by the way, because we're not moving, we are pressing. But anyway, for the sake of consistency, we will set this. So we will comment this out and say this is here we have setters. Welcome everybody who is just joining in. We are trying to build a racing game and we were trying to publish this racing game into Steam. Okie dokie. So now we don't have a way of using this because we will need a player manager. We will do that later because we first need some waypoints that the player can actually follow. That will come also later. Anyway, the next thing that we will need to do is we will need to have these inputs not accept any more input if we are not player type player. So we will say in here, if player type dot, or not actually dot, if player type is equal to player type dot NPC returned. What this will do is this will not execute anything that is below here. We will take this and we will just paste it here. And we will, what is this? I'm not using this. And this is where we hit our first problem because we cannot just return. Otherwise anything in here will not be obviously executed. So in this case, what we will do is we will say if the player type is player type dot player, then you can go ahead and accept. Why is this keyboard so shit? You can go ahead and accept this input. What the hell, bro? Okay, perfect. So, welcome everybody who's just joining in. So, I'm doing the same if statement in here and in here, but it's not consistent again. So you should always try to avoid this and follow the same design patterns. So you should always try to follow the same principle. Design patterns. So what I mean by that is you cannot use if player type is not equal to, I don't know, NPC or something, and then in here you ask basically the same but not the same. So what I would suggest on doing is take this player and then use it everywhere. And then instead of doing this, encapsulate this into here and then do the same thing for here. Now we have a clean and uniform code. Like this. And I think, in my opinion, this code looks a little better. Okay. Now we can go ahead and test this out. And we should say player can drive the car. If we set this to NPC, even though I'm clicking, nothing is happening. And that is because we have limited who can access or who can control this vehicle. That is all perfect news. So now I'm realizing there is not much that I can proceed on doing because we will need a waypoint system set up in here. that will loop through any track that we set it, and then we can have some AI or some simple scripted players. Now I say that because we obviously need some players and we need some competition to make our game a little more fun. Okay, so what I would suggest is just turning off the stream for today. And then off stream I can do, what I can do in here is I can try and setting the waypoint system. So point number 1, waypoint system. And then number 2, I can have a player manager that will do NPC stuff. So NPC stuff. I think we're trying to see a pattern, and the pattern is that when you start and building your game, it's kind of boring. But when you have something to work on top of, then it becomes really interesting. And that is kind of what's going on in here. Okay, so thank you everybody for tuning in. I don't know what to say else other than I'm really grateful for you to be here. Thank you everybody. And I will be back probably tomorrow. If not tomorrow, then I'll be back after tomorrow. Because I definitely want to get this finished.